Welcome, everyone. How's everyone feeling? It seems very tired people there. Okay. Now, I've been waiting for this topic for quite some time because it's super exciting, because today we're going to talk about sustainability. Now, each one of you has heard sustainability before in some kind of context, but these guys are making it real. So please stay with me, because I'm going to announce two lovely people over here. They're waiting. Kelsey and Ian from Tiki. They're going to tell you all about their program on how to turn waste into delicious drinks. And by the way, Ian is a rock star on the dance floor. I always wanted to say that. Okay, big round of applause, please.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, Ollie. Excellent. So, guys, wow, fantastic. Thank you so many of you for turning up today. We're really excited to be here. For those of you that have heard Trash Tiki talk before, this is going to be something completely different. This is brand new content that we've never actually presented before, so we're really quite excited about it, definitely.
Yeah. We're going to be talking more about how to apply our recipes and why to apply our recipes into an actual bar program. So it's a little bit more bartender focused and give you guys something that you can actually take home and use, hopefully. So here we go.
Yeah. So I guess first off, has everyone heard of Trash Tiki in some capacity or another? Yeah, mostly nodding heads, that kind of thing. We're going to give you like the shortest intro. Normally we'd talk for 90 minutes about who we are because we're that self-indulgent. But instead we're going to give you a really short clip about who we are and then get into some real mathematics and logistics of how to run an anti-waste bar program with it all. Is it working?
Yeah, it's working. There we go.
There we go. Okay.
So for those of you who haven't heard about who we are and what we do, we're a world touring anti-waste pop-up. So what we do is we'll go into a bar. We ask them to sort of keep anything that they would normally throw away over a weekend's prep, stuff like lemon and lime husks that most bars go through massively, pastries, like anything that's left over from your juicing, from your bar prep, and we go in and we make our drinks from them entirely, aside from spirit, sugar, and acids.
And that strapline that you can see up there, anti-waste drinks that taste okay and don't fuck the planet, that is something that we have really stuck to a lot. When we talk about this, it still seems quite weird because we're only a year old. But that is something we've really cared to, most specifically because of that sentence there, taste okay. If you've ever come to one of our pop-ups and tried the drink and gone, it's good, but I could do better, go and fucking do it. That's the idea, is we are nothing more than to be the inspiration to drive this forward at every point possible with it, so that hopefully every single bar can start incorporating a little bit of this methodology into it all.
And that's what we say. We are an extreme example, so everything is entirely made of a would-be waste product, which is not to say that you should be going home and doing this in your bar. It's a pretty extreme way of doing stuff, and it can be difficult to do that entirely. We don't say that you should go home and say that, oh, I'm only going to make things out of waste, which is what we're going to start talking about today. We're going to start talking about how you can incorporate maybe just one or two recipes and how to make it applicable for your own bar.
That was definitely something we'd seen. As we've started touring, and as we've met so many of you, and as we've started like bringing it in, maybe the arrows, not the, we started realizing more and more that everyone was coming along with a pop-up and they were seeing menus like this. And they were going, fuck, okay, so this is what I have to do to be anti-waste. But this is really extreme. And it's like, to a degree, it's not really the end game with it. The end game is to have everybody find one or two things and build it back in and go, okay, so I could maybe do the pineapple skins and the fermented tapache, and I could start using the pulp from my juicing a bit more. It's not about looking at this menu and going, how can I copy this word for word? And we realized that wasn't maybe getting delivered, which is why we've created this brand new presentation today, is to be like, how can you actually take this and fold it across into your program in the right manner?
So this is, I hope none of your menus actually look like this. This is just me trying to do things on Illustrator without knowing how. So this is kind of like an example of a menu that maybe is just like very classic based. that everyone knows what these cocktails are. And what we've circled here is stuff that could possibly be made using some of our ingredients. Stuff that would produce its own waste that you can kind of incorporate back through. So we're just going to circle a couple of things. We've got lime, we've got ginger beer, cassis, pineapple. These are all things that are like commonly found in a bar, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but hopefully your menus don't actually look like that. No offense if they do either, that's okay too. So for the next half hour, 45, we're just literally going to go through and we're going to show this menu in two different lights. What this menu would cost if you were an everyday bar, just doing it how it's done right now, and then what it would cost you if you incorporated an anti-waste ideology into the drinks. And really get into the prep. We're going to talk about a lot of recipes. We actually have a taster of one of our new recipes that's yet to go out coming around as well throughout this. And yeah, just really get into that nitty gritty because we realize like maybe let's spell it out as plainly as possible and let's show how much money you can save off this with it all because money's a big thing. It's strange. I think as bartenders sometimes we don't actually know what our own value is and that's why we get scared to talk about money. But when it comes to running a bar program, money is everything. It's first and foremost. And so we're really going to get into the financials on this. How you doing?
Yeah, I got it.
Weird.
It'll come up in a second here. There we go. Okay. So if you look at the trash list on the right, this is kind of stuff that we normally use. So you've got stuff like whey. If you go to any sort of yogurt manufacturer or cheese manufacturer, they've got tons of the shit. They don't know what to do with it because I think a lot of the times whey gets underused. You can also make it yourself if you want to do like a little ricotta when you're doing your prep, have a snack. But we do use offcuts anytime you like are trimming up a zest and you screw one up. You just put it in a bucket as you're during service. And just set it aside and save it for the end of the night. We'll give you some recipes to do with that. But these are all like really commonly found things in your bar. And if they're not, if you're pretty like classically focused and you're not doing a ton of those items, then you're going to look at kind of sourcing them from somewhere else.
Yeah, and that's a massive one that we realized when we first got this started in Hoxton Street in Shoreditch. It was very much like walking down the street after shift or first thing in the morning and seeing these other businesses, seeing a lot of Turkish cafes that were up and running, seeing a lot of the more like newer modern cafes and really going, well, cool, what would they have? And like through this research, like we put pastries up there. Pastries is a huge one. Just in the UK alone, 40% of bread that is baked is thrown out. So think about all the resources that go into growing that grain and then all the resources that go into baking it and producing pastries, breads, all the rest of it. And then we throw out almost half of it. It's fucking ridiculous. We should at least find another use for that if we can with it all. And we're gonna, Avocado Pits was one that we came across and then found out it's actually really rich to Mexican culture with it all. So.
Yeah, avocado pits are something that they're normally thrown out. I mean, everyone's made a guacamole, you use lime juice to kind of keep it from going brown. You can actually blend the pit up inside your guacamole and it keeps it from, preserves it, acts as a preservative. So it's totally okay to eat and it can actually be used, we've started using it as a replacement for a nut. So if you just give it a little, you grate it up or blend it up or whatever you want to do to break it down and then give it a little toast, it actually it acts as a nut.
Yeah, and we found out tradition in Mexican herbal medicine has been brewing avocado pit with hot water as a tea, as an herbal remedy for like a couple of centuries, so which was quite fun to find as well. But realistically, if you're looking at your own program, and yeah, it's classic, consider where else you can go. Go to bakeries, go to restaurants, go to coffee shops. We've heard recently of guys that instead of like getting whole milk every time they want to do a fat wash, or a milk punch, they've actually gone to the coffee shops and got the barista milk that would get thrown out after it's heated up once. The heat has already broken down the protein structures in it, so instead of buying more milk again just to do a milk punch, they just go to their coffee shop across the road and get the barista to keep all that. And it doesn't require heat that way because it's already been broken down. So there's loads of shit out there at the end of the day. We're still learning with this as we go, for sure.
And one thing we do want to touch on, when you do find that cafe that was willing to give you the barista milk or that or their avocado pits or whatever it might be, you want to look at them and treat them as a business, because at the end of the day, they're doing you a favor by offering up their waste product. While you're doing them a favor by picking it up, you want to make sure that you can both agree on a time that works for everyone and a method of doing so. We went to a cafe to ask for their coffee grounds when we were in Chicago, and the guy says, I don't have any coffee grounds. I'm turning around, I'm like, you got like 4 espresso machines right there. And he was just like, no, we don't have any. As he's throwing it out, I'm like, I'll take that one. But somebody had dropped off a bucket for them to collect their coffee grounds in and then just forgot about it. So it's about having respect for their business as well so that you can both move forward.
All right, let's get into it. So we'll fire on the first taster as it comes around. Well, I hope everybody's already had their morning coffee or whatever else, because straight off the bat, we're going to give you a taste of what is our lime stock. So if you've had a chance to go on our website, you might see that it's up there. Our lime stock is where we actually take lime halves after they've been juiced, add them to boiling water for about 5 minutes to extract the last of the flavor, remove the stalks back out, and then reduce that water by half. Exactly how a chef makes a stock with bones or anything like that. We then attach a citric or malic. So treat this as if you were about to do a shot of lime juice, which is to say, sip it very smallly and like just go easy on that shit, okay? But we incorporate it in as part of our daiquiri for this program. So you can see, oh, it's just gone, lovely. But you can see on the right there, or you can see on your left how the price of lime juice of an average daiquiri is up top, and you can see what it's coming to. As opposed to going to the extreme of just using lime stock, what we did is we incorporate 50% lime stock in with 50% fresh lime juice. There's something unexplainable about lime juice, which is delicious, and it adds depth to a cocktail that can't truly be replicated. So as opposed to just getting rid of all of it, it's just about cutting down your wastage on it. Again, it's not about being zero waste. It's about finding that degree of which you can fold back into an everyday bar program to still make a reduction on your costs with it all. And you can start to see this is a moderate saving. Obviously, we've excluded alcohol from this whole conversation because we're talking about fresh produce. But this is okay. This is like for every 300 drinks, you're saving, what was it there, like 10, 20, 15 pounds, give or take with it all. Euros we actually converted it to for this one.
Right, so this is kind of what we were talking about. If you look at the case of limes, which is all something we're pretty familiar with, bringing in a case of limes on a weekly basis. What that lime then produces is that other pitcher, and that's a whole bunch of husks. So this lime stock is made, obviously there's sugar and a little bit of acid in there, but it's made entirely out of the other side. So once you're finished doing both, the end of the conversation is you're stretching your lime juice by double. And another part of this conversation we want to have is that a lot of questions that come up is, how long does that lime stock then take to put on? And what is the cost for a person that's having to do that? I know with the tipping culture that is in the US, you have to pay somebody, and they might be losing out on tips for that couple of hours. But the lime stock can be put on at the same time as you're juicing, and you're just letting it reduce. So you're just sitting with something on heat as you're doing your lime juice. So you can do both at the same time. It's just about managing your time properly.
And it's shelf stable. So far we've had like 4 to 5 days. So even if you did your lime stock for the week one day, then you did your lemon stock the next, then the orange. You guys know how it works, right? You build your program. You build that ideology in so that you can put stuff in the freezer, you can hang on to it. Actually seen some faces that have done pop-ups with us in countries around the world. Like, these guys have seen as well that like, it's not complicated. We were able to do this pop-up in the Pontiac. Massive love to Becca Lee in Hong Kong. And like that is a wonderful little dive bar where we had one induction plate on top of there, and we were able to we were able to make enough prep to do a 2-night pop-up in 4 hours. This does not have to be long. This does not have to be something that really is more laborious than it ever becomes worthwhile with it all.
Okay, so we're going to look at a whiskey sour next. There's a big thing that gets used in a lot of cocktail bars, and that is egg whites. So how many people you spend all that time separating your egg whites from your egg yolks, and then you just throw away a good half of it. You throw those egg yolks in the garbage, or I don't know, maybe you donate it to a pastry kitchen, but Sure. If we look at the egg white in a whiskey sour versus something we call honey cream, so we're using, for that, we're using yolks, honey, and a little bit of whey that's been reduced a bit, along with the lime and lemon stock. The cost saving to that is astronomical. And you can then use that egg white for an entire new cocktail on the menu without adding any cost to your bottom line.
And you'll start to see as well, a lot of these prep ingredients that we put in there, the cost per cocktail is into the 0.0 something going into that drink. And we see this come up in a few of the drinks later on. The cost of the actual prep ingredient is so little, it's 0.00 because it's like 0.0003 cents to be able to put back into your drink. And like pennies make pounds. You've got to start running an efficient, cost-effective beverage program. And a lot of the time, you might be wanting to put higher quality spirits than you could normally justify putting in there. This is where that justification comes back in. This is where your ability to turn around and go, I'll take the 7-year-old instead of the 3-year-old rum. I'll take the back bar version of that product because I know it's significantly better. This is where these costs start to build back in. We all want to use better products, but we're still here to make money first and foremost. So it's about building that into every single part of the conversation with it all. So this honey cream, yeah, you talked about it, egg yolks, whey, and honey. And I think honey's a good conversation around locality that is something that's becoming a lot more prominent in this topic.
Yeah, so where I got the cost from this, there's a website called, I'm going to forget, btime.eu. Took me a second there. But what they've done is look at, in the European Union, each locally, it's a reference for beekeepers to know what to charge for their honey, and that's based on locality, and it's also based on quality. So these numbers are based off of a higher quality honey that's produced in Germany.
And locality keeps coming up again and again. As we get beyond talking about sustainability or anti-waste in its raw form, locality is becoming that real leader of the conversation with it all. Because we're all turning around and we're not just realizing, like, hopefully by the end of this, you'll all know how to be better with the use of your ingredients in your bar, but what else can be done? And a huge thing is about sourcing things as locally as properly, from Bad Frankie's in Melbourne, Australia, to VJ's Bar Native in Singapore. There's some bars that are really dialing in on this, and for whatever purpose they're doing it, what they're acknowledging as well is the fact that the less air miles that produce travels to get to your bar, the better it is before you even start using it. It's essential to any bar program that wants to start being forward-thinking. Consider your locality. Consider what is around you. Also, if you're going to do urban foraging, consider how many people pissed on that plant before you put it in a cocktail. So, like, be realistic about all this as well along the way, but do consider where that locality might actually hold a number of ingredients that are worthwhile to use in your bar program.
Okay, this is cocktail that which one have they got? Yeah. Cocktail that we're going to send out a sample of just now. Yeah. Just had to make sure it was the right one. This is our example of an El Diablo. The only ingredient that we actually had the guys here purchase was lime juice. Everything else is made out of would-be waste ingredient.
And delicious Altos tequila, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
So pulp is like, it's weird to say you've got like this fetish thing about something like juice pulp that normally gets thrown out, but it's become a real focus for us. We started this pop-up and everyone was like, cool, how are you going to get to do a daiquiri? And we were like, fuck, we don't know. We can't sort that out yet. But then we started realizing that in every single bar, you have an insane amount of juice pulp that you're throwing out every day. That could be pineapple that we'll get onto later, but ginger juice, right? You juice it, the pulp comes out the back. If you soak that pulp in water and sugar, 1-to-1, and then about 20% ginger pulp, spin that back out, and you've got the exact same quality as what the fresh ginger juice that you're going to sweeten anyway is. Like, whatever kind of pulp you've got out there, apple pulp is what we wound up using for our daiquiris. It has a really great fibrous quality to it, so we spin that as a 2-to-1 sugar syrup, add a touch of malic and citric back in there, and the daiquiris that we serve when we do it full anti-waste style, those daiquiris that we serve are just rum and our acidified apple pulp syrup, which is also on the website, obviously. Realistically, at the end of the day, that basic bitches everywhere have made the juice craze a real thing, and we should be doing everything we can to offset that. And so whatever kind of pulp is coming out of those juice shops every day, there is a use for it. There's a huge amount of flavor, there's a huge amount of color, texture, so many different elements as to what we aspire to put into our cocktails every day anyway.
And obviously, the big saver here in the thing is cassis. Obviously, we've taken some wine that was open for a little bit too long, so it's quite oxidized. We just reduced it down in a little pot with some sugar and some berries, and what that does was produce a product that is similar to cassis. Obviously, it's not like a shelf purchased cassis, so we've kind of just made maybe a replacement for it, but it's in a Diablo, since it's just a little bit of a float, adds some color, adds a little bit of fruitiness. That's what we've done instead there, and that's a massive cost saving. Also, yeah, obviously this is for over 300 drinks. It's a massive, massive saving.
But if you've got a cocktail menu of 7 cocktails, it's realistic to say in your average kind of bar, you'll probably put out 300 of them in any one given week. So you then start to see, on that one drink, you just saved 110 euros. And then you multiply that out by your 52 weeks, and you start to build in this conversation about, cool, what are these little steps that are going to change my bar's bottom line? Don't worry about saving the trees or all that shit. Worry about what your bar's bottom line is going to be like. That's what we want to talk about today with it all. Okay, so the ginger pulp that we just touched on, this is a really great picture. This was actually when we went to New York, and we were really lucky to do our pop-up at Mission Chinese. Lovely, lovely guys. But what we found in New York was we actually had commercial producers reaching out to us, which we'd never seen before. We'd never had before in any capacity. We had, what was it? What was the yogurt company?
White Mustache.
Yeah, White Mustache Yogurt Company reached out, and they actually have a range of what they call probiotics, which is just their whey flavored and bottled into different things. They were like, hey, come take some of our whey. This was a ginger liqueur company that literally they were like, we're producing on Monday. Why don't you come down, and when we finish pressing it, you can take it straight out of the press. And so we literally walked into their shop, and it is just a shop in Brooklyn, and they just unbuckled the press and let us scoop off as much ginger pulp as we needed. And that kind of changed our thinking again with this all. We realized what small boutique commercial producers might have to offer too.
And also that we could get flavor out of ginger that had been soaked in overproof alcohol for 3 weeks and then put through a press. It still had flavor.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the big one. This is, we put one of our slides up yesterday around prices, and I had someone come up after and be like, how the fuck do you save that much money on a pina colada? That's because pina coladas are fucking expensive in the first place. That's how you do it, yeah.
And a big reason for that is because you have to buy coconut cream. Very few of us are making our own. And that coconut cream comes at like $2.50 a can. So what we're doing instead is making a whey coconut. Should we flip to the next one just so we can see it? So this is, we've called it because the creator of it was not actually ourselves. It's somebody called Maya who works at Superlion now, and she's wonderfully creative. So what we've done is we just take whey, reduce it with a little bit of desiccated coconut and a bit of sugar, reduce it for maybe, 30 minutes until it becomes quite thick and creamy and coconutty, and then we strain it back out, and that's essentially a coconut.
And that shit's shelf stable. I found out when we were back in London, I was chatting with Maya, the original batch she made of that is still sitting in her fridge perfectly fine. There's no 2% citric acid in there. There's no nothing that you're going to find written on the back of every single other coconut cream around the world. This is literally whey, sugar, and desiccated coconut blended back in together. So wherever you are in the world, if there is somebody local to you making cheese, or if there is somebody local to you making yogurt, the exact same of solid volume they get out, they have a liquid volume of whey that they throw out every single week that they make. So if you think that you can't source whey, trust me, you can. It's one of the biggest waste ingredients in the food world, by far. What else do we have in there? Oh, we had tapache. We should talk about that.
Yes. So something that we do in every one of our pop-ups, and it's that simple, that we can get somebody else to put it on 5 days prior to when we do our pop-ups. So what we do is we take pineapple skins or pulp or anything that's left over from the juicing process. The skins contain their own natural yeast, but we also bump it with a bit of either brewer's yeast or champagne yeast, just so we can get consistency in every single city that we do it. You literally lob it in a bucket with sugar and yeast and pineapple and water, and then you let it sit for 5 days. Tasting it, of course, it will get slowly from super sweet to drier and drier and drier. And then what a lot of people have done is kept the tapache alive once we're finished, because we usually put on quite a big batch, and then they can use it in their own bar program. So you just lob a little bit of sugar in, you keep the thing alive, you keep it going, and you have this like living tapache pineapple beer thing that you can use and add to and subtract from.
To the purists out there that might be wondering how we're using, like, if you've ever had traditional Mexican tapache, we don't let it ferment so long that it goes acetic. We just keep feeding it with a little bit of sugar so that it doesn't transfer over into a vinegar style, which is what more traditional Mexican tapache is. Also, they usually put roughly 5 handfuls of cinnamon in like 1 liter of tapache. We put like a tiny little pinch. So if you're like, I call bullshit, you're absolutely right. We're not doing it the traditional way.
And if you want our recipe that we use everywhere, it's up on our website at trashtikisucks.com.
We haven't put the Baja Maja coconut recipe up yet, but we will do that at some point as well. But as you can see, that is just like achingly easy, and very quickly, what is a bartender's favorite, what is something that every single bar always wants to make, it just becomes so much more cost effective. That saving on 300 pina coladas right there, that's freaking nuts. Like, that's over the top, to say the least. And that's just on your fresh produce. That's before you consider what kind of rum you put in there or anything else. So again, it just keeps building. You just keep adding more money to your own bottom line with it all.
Yeah. If you just if you want to take a screenshot of this is our recipe, the same one that's on the website as well. It's per liter of water. So all of that, Euro 60 will get you a liter of tapache.
All right, so we had to put some real Tiki classics in there. We're going to serve one to you later, well, our version of a fog cutter later on. But this particular fog cutter contains a little thing that's coming around now for you all. So we spoke before about avocado pits and how they're long been used in Mexican herbal medicine, how they can also be used as an antioxidant. Not so much for your body, but for guacamole. And so, yeah, what actually is coming around now is a avocado pit orgeat that we've made, which, yeah, we really like. We think it's quite fun.
So it's super simple to make. We made it off of about 6 avocado pits, gave us 5 liters of the stuff. So all you're doing is you're blitzing them up in a Vitamix. You can also use a microplane to just get them really, really fine. Put them in a pan and give them a toast. They turn really, really bright red as they oxidize, but then just give them a little bit extra toast and lob them in some sugar water overnight. And what you'll have at the end of the day, the next day rather, when you strain it back out, is the product that you've got in your hands right now.
And this is definitely the base recipe for this. I think that's one of the big things, again, as we say with all our stuff. If you try and go, oh, I think I could tweak it here or I could improve that, go and do that in your own bar. Use those anti-waste products, take these recipes and put them out there. We, very much by virtue of also being an online resource, we try to make sure the recipes are as simplified, even in their mathematics, as possible. Whereas realistically, we know that if you want to dive back into your own bar and if you want to get extra nerdy or really geek out on this shit, go for it. Steal our recipes. We're not precious about this. As that first slide said, this is the worst business model ever. The best case scenario is that every single bartender around the world copies what we do so that we no longer ever have to do it again. So please, steal our shit. That's what we're saying, yeah.
So one of our classics that we do in every pop-up is a Mai Tai. We do a curacao that's made out of the husks of oranges, which is also on our website. The cost savings to that, it comes out like a classic dry curacao. It doesn't have nearly as much sugar in it. It's got a little bit of citric acid as well, just to balance the whole thing out. But the whole thing can obviously made with a little bit of vodka and brandy. The cost savings on that are kind of astronomically cheaper than if you were to buy a shelf curacao.
Yeah, and that one is like a really, it's under the nerdy stuff on our website because it is slightly more complicated. And when we say nerdy stuff, that means because you have to leave it more than 2 hours because we're pretty fucking lazy. So like literally all you do is you like make a little orange stock, macerate those oranges that you've already used in the orange stock in cognac, blend the two together, add a touch of vodka in the back of it all. So again, you start to see like really simple processes, things that are not laborious. As long as you've got patience and time, it all builds in together. Last one?
Yeah.
Last one. Excellent. How are we doing for time? Ollie, we've got you back on track. Don't worry. So when we talked about that pulp thing before and how we have kind of this like fetish for it, pineapple pulp has been like a real... It was probably one of those first ingredients that got us onto this all. Because like, if you're juicing fresh pineapple in your bar every day, when you've been standing there doing it, watching it go through, and you've seen all of that fiber that is still wet, which means there's still shitloads of juice in there as well, all of that coming out the back, and then you throw it out right, and you're like, huh, I wonder if there might be some more flavor in there somewhere, right? Like, it really starts to like wear on your mind a little bit. And this was definitely one of our first ingredients for that.
Yeah, and anything that we're kind of like, we see something like that where we know it's very fibrous going into the juicer and we see a little bit of wet pulp coming out the other side, what we do is usually just soak it in a little sugar water and see what happens. And by that, we came out with this recipe that we soak it in a bit of sugar water, that you then blitz it up and you strain it, and what you have left is this really, really punchy sort of pineapple cordial.
Yeah, and then you can put extra malic in there and extra citric if you really want to make it pop, and then use even less of your fresh juice with it all. There's lots of ways that you can manipulate it. At Dandelion, before we left, we then used it's amazing, you say the word dandelion and everyone shuts up. I love that. At Dandelion, we actually used that pineapple pulp a third time. So we juiced it, took the pulp, made a syrup out of it, and then after we'd made the syrup, we took the leftover of that and then just spread it out on a dehydrator and then made a little pineapple crisp as a garnish on top of there. So you can really start, you can use these things 3, 4, 5 times. You can build so much flavor out of what we've come to think as waste ingredients with it all. How are we doing? Yep. Pineapples everywhere, right. And the pineapple is a great example of one of our big mission statements. It was something that we didn't think of straight away, but after a while it came to be. We kept getting journalist after journalist be like, so what's the 5 things every bartender can do tonight? Or what's 3 things every home cocktail enthusiast can do? And we realized that there's not really one rule for everybody. Well, we didn't think there was anyway. Everyone has different produce they're working with. Everyone has a different bar set up. Everyone has a different boss that will care to varying degrees about doing any of this in the first place. And so we came to this idea of eradicating, as it would be. And so we say we want to eradicate single-use ingredients. That's it. You go back to your own bar and you want to consider how you can be more anti-waste, how you can incorporate this back through. Eradicate single-use ingredients. Consider where on any one product you can use it a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th time with it all.
And it's about turning around and looking at what you already have in your bar. This isn't about, oh, I'm going to go out and find this stuff. This is stuff that you might already have, that you could possibly use maybe a 2nd or 3rd time, as opposed to, putting pineapple skins on your menu when you're not using the rest of it.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. A word about pineapple skins as well. A lot of times people are just using them for a tapache or to get a ferment going. There's actually a lot of flavor just in the skin. So we were using a pineapple skin, and then we did a watermelon skin cordial. And you can actually use the skins of a lot of things. They get thrown out, I think, far too much. And what they do is they add this little green note or little bitter fresh thing that can happen that adds another layer of complexity to your drinks. And this shouldn't be about maybe building another it is about building another use, but it's also building another layer of complexity to your cocktails so that by using things 2 or 3 times, you can kind of get a fermented flavor in there, or you can get another layer of like bitterness or a green note that you wouldn't normally have gotten had you just juiced it and thrown the rest away.
Alrighty then, we got it. Yes, we did it in time. I was like, fuck, okay, we can talk about this. So, 2,100 cocktails. Now, every single bar is different. So when you hit 2,100 cocktails, you might think that's how many we make in a year, or that's how many we make in a month. Realistically, if you're a craft cocktail bar, you're probably doing at least that many per week, right? There's, I mean, Dandelion, how many is that? Like 2 nights?
2 nights?
Yeah,
2,100? Yeah.
2 to 3 nights? Yeah. Or you might be crazy high volume and you might do 2,100 cocktails a night. But at the end of the day, like, that figure, as you've seen, we really wanted to put the recipes up. You can't, like, you might have seen little holes in our recipes, but overall, we think that's a pretty tight, realistic assessment of what an average bar could save with it all.
And if you think about this for maybe a bar like Dandelion, or maybe your bar's doing more cocktails like this, and what that savings is in like 2 days, and you might think, well, my cocktail bar is doing this in like a month. It's still relative. It's still a good percentage of your sales that are being saved over that month. So if you think about 500 euros a month, and then you kind of build that over the course of a year, and all of a sudden it becomes, I can't do math right now.
6,000 euros? Is that what you're going for there?
Yeah, there we go. You build that over the course of a year, and that's astronomical, especially for a small cocktail bar that might only be doing 2,100 cocktails in a month. It's all relative to what you're actually doing in your own bar.
And then you save money and go shopping. No, but then you build it back in around it all as well. So like, you turn around and go, cool, we've saved 6,000 euros this year, or we're going to save 6,000 euros. Consider what you can do with that, right? Like, that's a freaking staff party and a new piece of equipment for you. That, like, your manager probably doesn't want to spend it on that, but when you go to your boss to try and get them to incorporate these recipes, talk about money. Don't talk about the fact that 40% of bread baked in the UK is thrown out. Don't talk about the fact you want to save the trees. Make it about money. Because he could be the most horrible, cruel arsehole in the world, and he still gives a fuck about money. Yeah.
Because we all do.
Went 1 minute over. Much to our concern, Ollie suggested that we do a Q&A at the end of this as well. So, not that it usually generates much response, but did anybody have any questions for us while you got us up here in the spotlight at all, or anything like that? Oh yes, there we go.
Hi. I'd like to ask you about the cyanide that comes up in the pits of cherries or peaches.
Yeah, don't use them whatsoever.
Yeah. But so it's not very danger with the avocado pits whatsoever.
No, none whatsoever. They've actually used it. Yeah, we only found out when we recently went to Mexico. They've used avocado pits in herbal tea medicine for 200 years. In fact, one of our bartenders was like, "Yeah, my grandma makes it for me every Monday after I've had a long weekend working." So there may be a presence of it, as toxins are present in everything, but never in a dangerous capacity, to our understanding.